on case-by-case basis. And now I would like to announce friend of Kuldīga, Mr. Peteris Blums. We have many reasons to call him a friend, and the most important reason is that in our national nomination file included the basis for all the values of Kuldīga already back in 2010, when in cooperation with Kuldīga municipal team, the values, the strategy, and the file of Kuldīga, which was very satisfying to ourselves. He would like to share us and brief us on reflections after restoration of the convention at Riga Castle in Riga. Good afternoon. Thank you very much to all the previous speakers. Thank you very much to Sandra, previous speaker, as I have a hope arising that the first hope arose in Kuldīga, that nobody was waning and blaming somebody else, but it is a team in Kuldīga established, which proceeded and progressed many matters quite fast. And that is another hope for me in Jūrmala. And a similar situation, I can attribute similar situation to Riga Castle. I don't think that I will tell very deep analysis with references to the Venice Charter, as I was taught the Venice Charter in mid-1970s by a person I would be happy to see among us, Juris Sidros. I'm very happy to see some people who were very close to him. He started to teach us about the Venice Charter, perhaps instead of and rather comparing to the situation that in other universities and high schools it was not mentioned at all. When I started to work at the Ministry of Culture in the 70s at the Department of Monument Protection and Preservation Board, I'm still working in an institution which is a derivative of the boards of those times, and the Venice Charter follows me all the time. I haven't opened the text of the Venice Charter for some recent 30 years, but I know how it should be done so that it would be respected.
So there are some generalities that come along with your work. It's like a bee. Bee knows what it has to do. I like this. I like old things from my childhood, and so maybe it's easy for me to follow the Chart of Venice. Venice chart is not old. I'm older than Venice chart, but it doesn't mean that maybe it has some features of being old. And of course, it's also not perfect, but it is good. It is good because if it was not there, we would not be sitting here. But if to see in more details, let's see, for example, what's written in there. Article 9. Restoration is a very specific method of preserving monuments. First speaker already touched this sentence. What is the definition of restoration? Which of restoration techniques? And how it is specific? That's one of the ways how we can preserve historical building. If very specific, then very qualified specialists are needed. And such mystified words says that there's some very, very specific. I don't think it's full truth. It also says that the aim is to preserve and open aesthetic and historical values of monuments. Because if someone says, I don't want to do it, for example, there is no cultural environment, stylistic value, it's not written in there. I can make aesthetic which is very good. And this is possible to do based on original materials. I looked what's in the English text. It's different in there. So what it means? In fact, we are reading interpretation. And I don't know who is the author of this interpretation. Maybe we are reading interpretation of an interpretation. Original material in monument and authentic documents. That's a weak text, to say it mildly. Article 10, it's really outstanding. If traditional technical means turns out to be insufficient, use any modern conservation or construction technique. The last part. So this actually allows. What is important that it's modern, but the substance of this message is somewhere completely else. We should be what is being used. It's difficult to say. This test filter needs to be in order not to commit some problem and not to admit some construction materials which are problematic, like PVC or something else. There are many things, paints and so on and so forth. Sandra already mentioned how Aspasi's house, the modern materials, the efficiency of it is not proved by practical experience. I tested the modern material, which was invented 2 years ago, and it's tested for 1 year. What kind of scientific tests we can speak of? Experience should be in long term. And how these long-term materials are going to interact with historic materials. Lots can be said about that. But the reason I'm here, I wanted to speak of my in Riga. There are many Riga's castle restoration authors. I believe, and this is why I'm here, that starting with my early years as pioneers, Juris Vasiljevs was advisor of my thesis. I participated in different competitions. I also have slight work experience. In 2009, I met Valdis Zatlers, Riga City Council founder, and I think that was very important for this council is still active in their work. And since many years, I participated in discussions and development of Riga City, Riga Castle. So I know quite a lot about Riga Castle. So I think there's only one Blums in Riga City Council, and This photo comes from summary of my diploma work, and here you also see my photo. So this is a part of my project of studying Riga Castle. I knew Riga's castle by heart. I could draw all 5 buildings. So I also had some ideas of my own how interiors should look. Of course, with ideas what restoration is, but from those days back then, how the end product of restoration should look like. Let's remember that the restoration office in PLCL 17, they worked from this building. Nothing new was back then. And so it was till the mid of 80s. This is how restorations should look like. Another advantage what I have is that with restoration and conservation, I've been involved quite a lot in since 1995. I finished the restoration of Ventspils Castle, and this project is from this summer. I proposed it, and the aim was to, in an authentical manner, to restore the part of castle which is used. It's just simply it undergone some wear and tear, and this only with restoration can the desired aim can be achieved. So restoration methods need to be used for restoration of Riga City Castle. And so here is a project which was prepared by me this summer and submitted. So 20 years have passed, and new developments are needed. So I think I also want to mention that one of the most interesting things, which is not described, not a single charter, is a question regarding Article 7 of Charter, how it's possible to explain that, for example, here Ventspils Castle, so data is obtained, conclusions are made, recommendations prepared, but maintenance project and result for each architect and author can be completely different. It's the same object, it's the same collective of authors which work. I understand that it is so. I understand this, but if it is correct or not, I cannot answer. It should be in a different way. So I think something's missing. The end product, the study, is made in a too rapid manner. It too fast comes to implementer, and even when such projects would be developed by Lapin's bureau or my office, and the results would not be the same. And in this case, I'm not at the initial stage in order to say that Riga Castle convent site is not good. No, not at all. However, I understand that not everything turned out as good as it could be. There are some things that were not achieved, but these things were not defined. And I think it's a fundamental failure. Yolk is not divided from egg. So what is valuable? As a result of study, information is valuable. In charter, documenting is also found to be declared to be very important. Study was not something that, so it was something which was forced in a way. It was to be done, and it was suggested to be necessary, that in the process you will find different funny things you will have to pay extra, but until the time people have not met these problems themselves, people do not believe that such study are necessary. Little children should find out how also smells that comes out of them. And this is also with the problems. People should learn where the problems come from and what are the... Also same is in architecture. If a study is being done in construction, during construction period, it's a real terrible for building companies. It's a delay in a project, it's additional costs. Also, as to the tower, I think it's excellent, with exception of cellar. Southern part is successful, in my opinion. I don't know if all of you are successful, but the southern facade, I think, is successful. I think it's significant, it's informative, and rich in heritage. From heritage point of view, entrance hall, cellar in the D corpus, those are most valuable heritage rooms, areas, which we can see as guidings in this castle.
The rooms are background rooms, so to say, so that the main ones could be extinguished more. I try to understand how Ventspils Castle differs from Riga Castle, and my perception and my consideration of what the final result of Riga Castle is. We have several rounds of discussions, and I've understood that these are two different paradigms, totally different paradigms or starting points of restoration. To myself, also to Ventspils city municipality, who ordered the project of Ventspils Castle. We are speaking about restoring castles. 30 years ago, it was really crucial to restore a totally destructed building of Ventspils Castle, as only walls were remaining. Whereas in Riga Castle, initially the customer wished to have museum, and also those criteria and regulations stipulated by a culture protection, inspection and board. In one case, priority was museum as architectural monument. In other case, architectural building and architectural monument where museum could be located. I haven't heard that someone in Ventspils castle museum, somebody would be complaining. In Riga castle, all the time we were telling and saying we need a modern museum, so what about castle? We have many castles in Latvia, so museum should be prioritized as purpose of the use. But what is the scale where we can weight the balance? What is more important, museum or castle as historical monument? We have the only one and solely Riga castle dating back to 1330s, which has beheld and have stood the times and conquers by Swedes, by Russians, by Swedes again, by Polish, etc., and has survived and has beholds also the residence of the President of Latvia in one part which was restored by and before 2018, the centenary of Latvia in 2018. Now the part of historical museum, a museum of history, is restored to some extent, and as one of the first speakers mentioned, these arched or vaulted basement or cellar rooms were restored, and this between ceiling was disassembled so that opened these very high ceilings and beautiful arches. At one moment of time, when this historical strata or layer of later mortar disintegrated to some extent, we discovered these original authentic walls dating back to 16th century from the bottom to the top. We had 6 month long disputes and contest and struggle among the board and the passionate people about historical substance, as there is no other place on the walls or in the castle itself where we can discover and see these original substances and original structures dating back to 16th century. And as the commission was led and chaired by Culture and Construction Board, they were saying no. They declined initially our proposal and our project, but they had to face their dislike for a common purpose. We couldn't believe that experience of other restorers was telling and whispering that that includes very huge potential which should be used. Another place was uncovering or dismantling Soviet time this ceiling, partitioning the space into 2 floors, was disassembled for restoring original vaults of medieval age. I am not against the way chosen, but we again face, obviously, the Venice Charter once again. Inevitably, we destruct something newer in favor of restoring something older. We had quite a prolonged discussion and debate, but the dream that it should be restored lasts from Baltic German times of 19th century. But when I discovered the view, and that theoretically we had missed an opportunity. We decided to dismantle the ceiling, but perhaps I was thinking that it would be useful to keep some sense of that ceiling and those partitions existing. So there were wonderful wooden frames kept and maintained in very good, good condition, both seams, planks, boards, some carved and cast iron elements. So when the ceiling and some partitions were removed, we still could see holes and openings from beams. So we returned to point number 11, how it was implemented in practice. This is southern wall of Remter, and we see how the negative image when a ceiling or partition which was created somewhere in 18th century was removed, and a wall was discovered with polychrome elements. So we had 3 partition walls in total. The project, the design, restoration design, considered an opportunity of exposing that later on for museum purposes. It took some months, as I warned that it will turn out badly. If we wish to have Remter, that was one case, but if we needed some anatomicum, so to say, or some preparations or openings with some technical parts and some technical traces, when the structure, horizontal structure, was removed, such architectonic landscape opened. Probably we might think that it was our architectural or architectonic quality. I accept that to some extent it was some quality. I might consider it to be like architectonic joke, but this is not Remter. This is totally something totally different. I cannot vacate myself from a sense how a Remter should look like. So that is how Remters looked like in Malborg, which was restored after World War II damage. And there was a proposal, as we can see in a lower drawing, how it looks like now, and upper part includes a proposal to close and cover with some draperies, etc., to close some openings by draperies or by some fabrics. But problem was that discussion should have taken place before, and those debates should not be done and held during construction process already. So there was a lack of time or a lack of will. But we must talk about it because such aspects and factors should be taken into consideration and taken into account beforehand, so that construction process would not be delayed and that there would be some clarity already regarding the approach or holistic approach towards all the challenges that might be discovered and occurring during the construction process when some previous historical strata are opened and perhaps could have been hidden before. So there is no if and when something is already adopted and approved with a seal on it, so it's very hard to change anything. And I still have a feeling that we were lacking a discussion about problems which might occur, but which were already discovered during construction process. As regards window openings, as regards historical windows, it is all right. Situation is okay. Authentic, original windows and window sills were kept. We had a lot of old doors and new doors were installed, which were copies or replicas. And when you would visit Riga Castle, you would not be able to distinguish between the old one and the new ones because they are imitated very thoroughly. In this place, there was a mortar part by connecting the first and the second floor. A new window opening occurred at the height it existed in medieval times. Architect Liepinch developed a design with a quite heavy double iron casting. And he was quite open that he considered Riga Castle to be an industrial site. If from outside, when this structure of the wall facade is opened and discovered, what you can see through that window looking inside. Can you see anything? No. And let us see what it could be seen. So, previously, some decades ago, that was landscape point number 7. Site or object is not to be separated from the environment, and that was view one could take through that window. And when I asked the architect why did you decide to close it with some tapestry or with these very heavy elements of iron, so there is no view anymore. And those windows located in Lunda city, they create wonderful artistic mood and vibe to see, to take a look into the old town with a very wonderful atmosphere and a quite unexpected perspective. And in the case of Riga Castle, it might be restored to the moment, perhaps, that the Grand Duke of Livonia might have taken a look into old Riga through that window at the level of second floor. But now these windows may not be changed and replaced because every one of them costs approximately 20,000-30,000 euros, and it is too late already. And unfortunately, due to some interior design and also missed value, because there was no discussion what to do if and when some historical value is discovered, opened, as being hidden before, and some modern and fast fix decision is made instead of long-term considered perspective.
And here on the left you see Capella in LED tower. I think it's a very successful solution. But it didn't just came about. It came about with Castle Council's influence. Without that, it would have looked in a completely different way. Capella was to be painted in white, and I asked, how are you going to come to this whiteness? The answer was with white paint. And I said, it's impossible. you are killing facture, because many years should pass, tens of years, that dust would settle on this surface. And then, with the help of council, it was made that there are some sample areas were assigned, and we came to final solution. So we came a square meter by square meter to the result that you see now. So here another problem is shown, that new young architects, they start to work, they don't know many things, how the end of the road, how the end of the development works. So I think this castle advising council is very important, and this was also shown in the example of Ventspils, where we also came to the same findings. These surfaces are very well preserved, but on the left you see I'm taking this back, that's from lead tower, but this was not made by these are Polish restorators. They work for quite a long time in Latvia, and they also made our southern facade. We don't have many of them. And taking into account the amount of work, labor force which was required. Okay, I'm moving ahead. Some other factures, surfaces. So this is a very good job. Here, some theoreticians have different opinions. Is it a good solution or not so good solutions? I would say that this subject is not finished. So in my opinion, this is... I know that this capella is not finished. Nevertheless, I think it's a good solution. As to the Remter, the whole dining hall, I think it's a good job. Nevertheless, there are some shortcomings, which I already mentioned in my earlier talk. Now to the details. Old staircase and new staircase. This came about after a rather prolonged discussion, that also a new staircase needs to have detail. This staircase of 1970s of 19th century detailing was made. There is also architect Reinis Liepiņš says that the project was made in a very, very fast tempo. It took a year of time, and it was necessary because there was a centenary, which one cannot trust the government, which has political ambitions. As to the quality of preservations, they are not really deeply involved with that. And the reason is that they are not studying it, but they should have trust in specialists. As to me, apart from rooms I already mentioned, I think the castle is too white. And the reason is that the author wanted everything in white. But why white? Because it's modern. But to me, it reminds of Euro restoration. Let's see what's going to happen in a year's time, and 70 or how many thousand people, visitors, would go through this building, and the cleaning ladies would also made some streaks on the walls. Yes, there are some openings, but in my opinion they are without context. Some uncoverings present. So there are, I think there are not many of them, and they lead somewhere. There is this polychromic fragments. In my opinion, they are without context. What's going to happen? I would not say that in many cases, but in some cases there are straight angles. Sometimes there are some places. So here, for example, there are 30th years of last century, and it's completely different time period. And this is driven by constructive considerations. I think this room is more or less okay. One of the most successes is this floorings of the 30th made out of cement. I thought that this is not going to be successful, but the lady who decided to do this work, she ordered copies in Cambodia or in Vietnam, and I think the success of this project, this flooring plates, they are slightly different. I think that's a real success. On the top side, on the left, there are this technical joint which is bought at depot, building store, and then a design technical joint was ordered, and I think that was a successful solution. But this did not come just on its own, but by contribution of this council. So here you see the end result, which came from this from the beams of 18th, 19th century. So four woods that are glued together. There are no indications what those are, but those are historical beams. So they are straightened with epoxide resin. They are joined together, and rather strange form. They're heavy, but historical beams, they have surfaces, and it's enough to wash surfaces. There were many different solutions how this could be tackled. Robert, you know this by your experience in Pope. Woods, they have many different ways. And I see this as another problem, that we don't know how we can use reclaimed materials to their full potential. Now floors. Here, in this floor of Capella, it's more or less okay. But by the project made by Liepiņš, a very good floor is provided for, made by boards. In gallery, the floor made by all the tilings, that's stone tilings, that's very good. But from this old boards, this floor on the right, that's laminate. That's of poorer quality than laminate. You can buy better laminate than this floor. And when some some hills would make impressions in this. You'd see real problems here. What to do with old boards? There was discussion about that, and it didn't come to anything. And the reason for that was that the project was pushed ahead, and it was required that the project is finished in 1 year's time. Okay, I need to rush a little. There are some possibilities how old floors can look like when they are made in good quality. I think your accumulator is weak here. There's many words said, and here are listed the values which are still present in castle, and it's much more than what we have here. So there is huge potential, and there's discussion should which architectural solutions we should keep, or maybe it should be like this. This is how Brodze painted it, and how it comes all together with Venice Charter. This clicker doesn't really listens to me. It's very good. It's very fortunate that restoration didn't happen earlier, but I think these generations that come after us, what people are going to say about restorations. I already mentioned study, and the third sentence is a sentence that I would like to advise to pay attention to. We lack discussions. If we had conference before the castle project was started and before works were started, it would be much easier to understand where we have dangerous spots and what should be avoided. And we have not evaluated what is castle. Perhaps they receive some award and everything's going to be very good, but we have not established what's good, what's bad, and we do not know what we can avoid. We simply do not know enough, since too many things that go there, they applaud. Everything is wonderful there. Ungained goods, this is another thing I wanted to draw you, and here I would like to say thank you, Venice Charters, that you are there. Thanks very much to Mr. Peteris Blums for this story, which of course is much longer, especially for such an object. And I wanted to say that in Peteris' presentation there was this story of experience, perseverance, openness to discussion, persuasion, and good quality result with added value. This is the process we need during our daily lives. We just think that everyone thinks the same way, but in discussions and cooperation, only the best solutions are found. So thanks to Peteris for drawing our attention to this.
A genuine professional, whether he is an academician, professor, or a practitioner, is the one to tell that knowledge, that part of a piece of knowledge or some practical know-how, so that everyone would understand. So thank you to Mr. Peteris for his very detailed discussion and briefing, as well as presentation regarding the Riga Castle, and really trend for slow